We continue our study in the Gospel of Matthew, looking at Matthew chapter 1 and verse 16. And Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who was also called Christ. In the life of the church, we often read the stories of the great heroes of faith backwards. Now, here I'm talking of the long dead and departed. In broad terms, this was practiced in ancient biographies. So if, for example, you take the life of Alexander the Great, the 4th century BCE conqueror, what you would do as an ancient biographer is look at the fact that he was great and then say, well, that requires a birth that was a sign of his greatness to come. So his birth also had to have great signs of greatness. There's a logic at work in this that makes sense. It is that greatness bequeaths greatness. It is that if one is great, then one must have begun with great beginnings. So too in the lives of the saints, we can look for portents of greatness as an affirmation of their greatness. If Jesus was great, then his parents must be great, and for that matter, his grandparents. Anne is considered a saint in some quarters of the Christian church. Anne is considered the mother of Mary, and therefore the grandmother of Jesus. Mary's mother was more than likely a woman of faith and commitment. The problem is that we do not actually know Mary's mother's name. The name of Anne emerges after the New Testament era. You see, if Jesus was great, so must his parents, and for that matter, his grandmother. Greatness requires greatness is a belief. You cannot argue with the logic of the argument, but this does not make the argument right. Notice, Jesus was a descendant of kings, but Jesus was also born to some common and rather ordinary people. You know, that is the way God works. Jesus was not born a son to King Herod, and that was probably a good thing because King Herod killed a couple of his sons. He was not born to Augustus, the great emperor of the Roman Empire at the time of Jesus' birth, whom many considered, that is of Augustus, that he ushered in the golden age. Jesus was born to some obscure couple who, if it was not for his son, would have passed through history unknown today. You see, that is the way God does things. God does not need our attainments or our achievements. God simply needs for us to offer up ourselves so that we can be used by him for his sake. It can be very easy to look back at our lives and make an inventory of ourselves and see that we are of no use to God. Moses definitely did this. Peter did this. And we do this. You see, the logic is that greatness requires greatness. We look at our lives and say we sing off tune, or I am a poor public speaker, and the list goes on and on. So when we look at Mary and Joseph, we can ask, what did they bring to the table? And we draw up a list and then compare ourselves to it. The reality is that most of us are very similar to Mary and Joseph. We are just very common and ordinary people. And that is what God uses. The only issue is the willingness to be used of God. When we look at what we do not have or focus on what we are not, then it is often the case the real issue is that we are saying thanks, but no thanks to the call of God on our lives.